Hello, everybody. I'm Paul Kartsonis from Bakersman Productions, and welcome to the South Bay Association of Realtors Safer at Home program, where today we're going to be discussing digital marketing as a survival kit during COVID-19. And don't we all need that? Hope everyone is safe and well, and looking forward to learn a bit more about digital marketing and how it can affect your business. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and share the presentation. And we have somebody monitoring the chat. So if you have questions, you queue those up. We have a Q&A at the end, and we'll get to as many questions as we can. Thanks so much. So I think the important point here on the digital marketing is a critical part of your marketing efforts. And we don't want you just to survive, we want you to thrive. And I know in our business, this is a challenging time, and we're having to make adjustments and do business differently just to ensure that we are postured to come out on the other end of the tube. Today, the theme of today's event is the not so open house. I'm sure most of you can relate to that, even in spite of the fact that real estate is considered critical. Open houses and gatherings are not possible in the way that we're used to them. And so part of today is going to be devoted to ways that you can maximize that. We're going to start with a little theory, though. And a little about us. We may not be a household name for most of you, but it really depends on the house that we're involved in. We're very active in the entertainment space, as well as other areas in training and digital production components, marketing support systems, things of that nature. And what we do for real estate is relatively straightforward. We do immersive technologies, 360, drone, 4K video, virtual reality, augmented reality, and web and mobile applications. And that ends the official commercial. So let's start with a snapshot of digital marketing during the COVID-19 era, and kind of what's important. Digital is well established, and from an advertising perspective is now dominant. According to the SBA, 7 to 8% of your gross revenue should be spent on marketing. And in 2019, 50% of that marketing budget should have been dedicated to digital marketing. And our estimation in a current age is that number has probably spiked pretty heavily. So one of the other things to note is that all the old rules are subject to revision. Nothing is as it was, and according to the New York Times, over the last 15 years, which is a time period where a significant portion of advertising revenue for real estate was in print, 1 in 5 newspapers shuttered. Since this started, and now this is 2 days ago, the Burbank, Glendale's, and La Cañada newspapers folded, and I don't think they will be the last. Everybody has to move to a digital platform to truly be successful in our current environment. Real estate transactions are clearly dependent on digital marketing. A typical buyer uses a mobile device to search for properties. They look at websites, photos, home listings, and then they contact an agent and view 10 homes before purchasing. Those are the details in 2019. Of course, we don't know what that looks like now, but I think we can provide a pretty good guess. So now it's time to double down. Since you really don't have any other mechanisms to really reach people, we know that the processes are accelerated, and that digital is going to be a more key components. And even though your revenue streams are down, and you're inclined to reduce spending on those types of things, this is also time to establish brand and define and really separate yourself from the crowd. And we need to be aware that there's no drive time radio now. Broadcast television is down, so funneling your resources and your efforts into digital only makes sense. So let's talk about the components of a digital strategy. Online ads, broadcast emails, definitely focus on social networking, using immersive technologies and video, and then SEO is another component of that. And if you have budget and mechanisms to do so, taking advantage of mobile as well. So let's talk about the importance of digital content and branding. And to be fair, today's presentation is really centered around content, because we believe content is the mechanism through which all of these digital channels will be fed, and hopefully the extension is how you will be fed. So yeah, let's talk about defining your brand. And I think that that's a critical component. And you have to remember that you are a centerpiece to everything that's going on. And I think in a lot of minds, it's the property itself. You sort of define yourself by the properties that you sell or that you are involved with, and that sort of imparts your brand. But I think that it is sort of important for you to think about that in the from the other perspective, is that you are the centerpiece, and that the properties are an extension of you. You're independent of your broker or agency, but you should be mutually aligned, and but maintain a separation of brand, because the reality is people want to do business with you. And I think that in a digital platform, this is an opportunity to really define you and define how you can conduct your business. So what you should be, as an objective, you should be seeking targeted engagement through content. So as we establish you as a foundation, your content is going to reveal who you are. It's much like a character in some sort of an episodic or a movie. There is an ongoing reveal of who that character is and what they stand for, and how they interact with the world around them. And people, especially in a digital platform, are going to be able to assess you as you move through the process. And they are assessing you. They are assessing you to list with. They are assessing you to buy from, and all the technical aspects of a transaction are important. But people like to do business with people, and I don't think this is new information for anybody here. When you are selecting the tools that you use, make sure that they have analytics and tracking on them. This is so crucial, and most everything has some sort of an analytic tool, but you need to think about it from a perspective of how you're going to use that information. How are you going to use raw numbers? So like Zoom today tells me who's on the call. I know how many people are there. I don't have a sense of geography. I presume that they're all in the South Bay, but I know through the magic of social media and shares, we have attendees today from the UK. And hello. So it's sort of exciting to be able to get information about the people that you're reaching, and with the frequency and the reach that you never have really had before. Some of it had to happen intuitively. We encourage you to monitor your progress, because ultimately what you're going to be doing is defining a methodology by which you can maximize your spend and your efforts. You know who's reacting, you know who's engaging with your content, and then ultimately you should be able to see that in some form of a closure rate. So identify some metrics along the way, monitor your progress, and then constantly course correct to ensure that you're using your resources to their best possible ability. And we also encourage people to ensure that your messaging establishes a value-add relationship that separates you from the crowd. I think there are a huge number of examples where you can show somebody who had been involved in a transaction or shared information that made them seem like the expert, or made it easier for the buyer or the seller to conduct their business, and that really makes you stand out. And it's also important to remember that when you're developing content and you're branding yourself, it's not just about finding buyers, and that's an important part of the throughput, but you're actually creating an environment that will attract sellers to you, and they make decisions based on what they see online. So if you have a robust set of content available for them to see, and they see how active you are, they see your personality, they see how you approach the business, then that creates a sense of comfort and association, which obviously you want. And to that point, and I think I've made this point before, and I will make it at least 3 more times during this presentation, is to make sure that your online presence is an extension of your personality. Doesn't matter really who you are or what you stand for, but whatever you do needs to be authentic you. And I think those are the things that drive people. You can go live, you can go bold, you can be however you want to be seen, but whatever it is, make sure that it reflects what you want people to see of you, how you want them to take away. And for all intents and purposes, please be social. This is one of the key components, and for the most part, it doesn't cost you anything to get engaged in this. To really be proficient in it, ultimately you'll have to spend some money, but you can get your baseline in a social environment with very little cost and a limited amount of effort. So let's consider social media your calling card, where your funnel might have come from a variety of different things, and it still will. Social media really needs to be a key component of that. So as a nice segue, let's talk about creating impactful social media content. So I think first of all, let's look at the landscape, and there are more gray dots in this landscape than I've demonstrated here. But there are key components of this, and they are important for a variety of reasons. One is that they are unique to certain age groups, certain demographics, certain points of contact. Excuse me, 1 second. And so I think the strategy in using them all and in a cohesive and a logical format speak to the audiences that you can communicate with. And so for those of you unfamiliar, and I hope there are very few of you, on the left is Facebook, Twitter, which is traditionally a textual short burst, but you can put links to content in there. Next is YouTube, where you should have your own channel and be creating content, as well as delivering content that relates to your listings and specific property. LinkedIn, where you can create, well, excuse me, I jumped over Instagram. I shouldn't have done that. It's very important and definitely skews younger, but it gives you the opportunity to place imagery and videos, as well as key content that supports that. And then LinkedIn, where you can create communities, if you will, and isolate people either by the areas that they're in, or their jobs or companies they work for, things of that nature. You can get creative there and develop mechanisms that can connect you to groups of people that you might not otherwise be able to connect with. So when you're creating social media content, we want you to do a few things. One, we want to make it contextual. Why is it important? Why is it important to the user? We want it to be engaging. It can't just be the same content over and over again, because that doesn't draw people. If you can, you need to make it interactive, so that there is an opportunity for you to communicate in a two-way cycle with them. Definitely make it visual. This is a visual medium, and it is so important that visuals rule the day. And if you can, make it immersive. And we're going to talk a lot about that in a moment or two. So what should you do and what shouldn't you do? These are important pieces of information. Do generate content. We're going to talk about the reason that that's super important for being viewed a little bit later, but the more content that you can generate, really the better for you. It not only does it help define your brand and communicate with your customers, it also will represent you in a way that drives you to higher search responses. So do create content that doesn't have a sales purpose. Not everything has to be about a sale. You can create videos about appraisals or special work or how inspections take place. This is an opportunity for you to be an expert and you to offer that value add component that I talked about before, which is make it easier for them. In our business, I have made it a habit of being able to take on any task to ensure that we made the nature of our clients' lives easier. And I've always told them the net of what I want is for you to feel comfortable that every time you run into a roadblock, you pick up the phone and call me. And that is, as I think is a good strategy for all of you there. So when you're creating content, do tag your clients, do tag your partners, get permission, of course, but I think the key to this is by those cross-link extensions, you are really going to enhance and extend your reach. You're going to get into other spheres of influence, and you'll just continue to grow an audience. And of course, capture all this information if you can. So what shouldn't you do? And so I'll do those as a block. Some of it you've heard before. Don't be something you're not. Be authentic. If your market is starter homes, speak to that audience. If you're in the luxury market, speak to that. But focus on that. You can't be all things to all people. Be who you are and do what you do. And I think that is a key to success. Don't mix social with business. I have a good friend who is a broadcast television personality, and he has two social identities, and one of them is pretty well hidden, where you get a lot of personal information. The other one is very much television broadcast personality, but the clear line of demarcation is important, because everybody, including your clients, have differing views on all sorts of subjects, political, religious, social, even about real estate. So don't taint the pool with either negativity or content that is so specifically personal to you that it doesn't need to be broadcast. And if you feel the need to vent on social media, I recommend that you don't. We've had experiences both with employees and clients where you get exposed to something and it alters the community. And so if you vent to friends and family, don't do it for clients. And to give you an example, this is a quick little anecdote, but we have a friend who is not in, well, he is in the real estate. He's a real estate developer. And he went to a restaurant during the COVID-19. He's trying to do a good thing and support his friends, and so he's interviewing the owner, who has gloves and a mask, and he's doing all the good social distancing components. And in a moment of excitement, he said, "Hey, let me show you the kitchen," and which was unplanned. He went into the kitchen, and unfortunately, the people in the back room were not properly adorned, and it just set off a social media firestorm about, hey, I wouldn't go to that restaurant, those types of things. And although that's sort of an extreme example, you have to remember that every time that you create content, people are reviewing it for things that they want to associate to you. So give them those. We're actually going to do a separate webinar. I don't know whether it'll be under the auspices of the South Bay Association of Realtors, but we're going to talk about that. But I'm going to give you a couple of key tips, because SEO is such a critical component, because it is how search engines function, and by your understanding of that, you enhance your ability to function in this space. So SEO, and again, hopefully everybody knows this, but search engine optimization basically is on your content, your websites, your videos. Gives you the ability, some ability, not an extreme amount, but some ability to control your appearance online. In ignoring it really it only just drives you further down the list. So there are a number of things you can do with SEO that make you appear faster and earlier in search results, and we're going to talk about some of those in more detail in a minute. But first of all, and again, you've heard this already twice, create original content to improve your Google ranking. Content is a defining factor for contextual. How contextual you are to a market, how important you are to a market. So the spiders, by definition, what they see defines how others see information. So that's why so many e-commerce sites have blogs. They update them daily. The more content, the more results you'll appear in, leads to higher traffic numbers, and it's so crucially important. And then load that content with SEO keywords. And keep in mind the things that you want to be represented in, and load those things up. There are words and phrases that are most commonly searched related to your topic. So include as many as possible. And here's a little pro tip. It doesn't just work for blogs and articles. You can see it with YouTube videos, photo captions, and for heaven's sake, always put alt tags on any of your images, because those things are huge in the mechanism that brings your product to the fore. So let's talk about advertising on Facebook. So any post really can be an ad within their framework. We recently tried to post an ad and had to go. We had to go through, I think, 3 or 4 different rounds of it with Facebook so it met their definition. So you may run into that. You're subject to fair housing laws, and so there are some very specific things that you need to be cautious about. You can't use lookalike audiences. You can't isolate by age, gender, location, or special categories. And here in South Bay, if you're on Spectrum, for example, they're running a number of ads that are highly targeted to African Americans, and they talk about having BET in their system and those types of things, and those will never pass through the filter. So you have to keep in mind how you're representing, and the way that it is reviewed will be important. You can match interests, but you can't match income levels and or other defining pieces of information which you're very used to, which is zip codes. Well, you can't control that in a Facebook environment. You can use Facebook pixels to track activity and drive ads, but the definition of that is can be relatively sophisticated, but there are opportunities. You cannot control who sees it or the reach. They give you a perspective of reach, but they can't be specific. And I think ultimately where Facebook really excels is future clients. Your presence is essential here, and the body of work or the body of content that you place here is going to be essential to defining how people respond to you, and then ultimately will drive them to do business with you. You can, there are opportunities to market them and boost posts, but you're going to get variable returns there. And you have to remember, this is not a primary mechanism through which people look for real estate. It's more of a stumble upon real estate, but they will be developing relationships with realtors in this space. And so be mindful that this is brand building, and even though you may spend a lot of time on Facebook, or you perceive your audience does as well, just be cautious before you dump all your money into that space. Test, and see how it's going to function. Advertising on Google is another one of those. It's technically AdWords. In our estimation, a lot of this is designed to market to people who are going to list properties, and ultimately what you want to do is raise your quality score. But keep in mind that if there is any crowded space on a Google search engine, it's going to be real estate. So I live in Redondo Beach, and I'm sitting here in 90277. So I ran a quick query for Redondo Beach real estate. And I wanted to point out that the first first four components on this are ads. And so these are purchased placements. People spent money to get to the top of this, and I was on page 2 before I actually got to local realtors. And so there are opportunities here, but you should be mindful that as an independent, your ability to drive yourself to the top on anything but a very specific search could be limited, which goes back to raising your quality score. Relevant keywords need to be on your landing page because when you place AdWords, they're connected to the keywords that you have on your site. Otherwise, your relevance continues to fall. And then the secret weapon is relinks to brokers and agents, properties to agent. Relink, build your community, because the more relinks that you have, the more relevant that you appear to Google. And although different search engines function slightly differently, they all function fundamentally the same. They have spiders or other tools that go out. They assess your website, and they try to bring relevant information to searchers. And so learning how to play that game, but again, there's a fair amount of caution that's associated with this, is that understand how the process works and test it, and make sure that you're getting a good response rather than dumping, putting all your chips on black and spinning the wheel. it takes a bit of time to really understand how to maximize that. And so this is another one where I believe that there is an opportunity for a bigger, broader discussion. And so to that end, I will sort of keep this at a superficial level. There are lots of tools out there that will allow you to communicate through broadcast emails, and they're very powerful and becoming more powerful every day. A couple that I wanted to point you to is HomeBot and eProperty Watch, which both have content allows them to take information, publicly available information, and associate your list with that and drive business. Periodic changes in property values or probing for opportunities to list, those kind of things, equity managers, those types of tools are available there, and for a fee, you can put your list of clients in there and continue to drive business. On the bottom row are some more kind of traditional, just e-marketing types of tools: Constant Contact, MailChimp, and then the third one, Campaign Monitor, which we use a lot for the entertainment space. Are all valuable. They allow you to create and manage lists and put them in segments and subsegments. It allows you to do e-blasts by campaign. You can do A/B testing. It actually becomes relatively sophisticated, and I've seen a ramp up in this space over the last year in sophistication, and I think you're going to see some quantum leaps going forward. The one thing that I will say about this is that whatever you're doing as far as e-blast, you should coordinate that content with the timing of your social media posts so that you're getting the full effect. And presumably, as you're generating an audience and you've got this captured list, you'll deliver content to them that they will also see in social media environments, and you get the rule of frequency and exposure in advertising, which relates to people sometimes have to see things 3 times before it really resonates with them. And so use that. Another key for this particular environment is that you have an opportunity for personalization, and you can create personalized messages using a variety of data sets that can, dear Bob, I know you bought your house in 2000. Have you ever thought about, whatever we can data source, we can deliver a personalized message out to them in an e-blast. And it doesn't need to be managed, just the data set needs to be managed, and the rest of it will sort of magically happen. And it engages, makes you compelling. So let's really get into dealing with a not so open house. I think this is probably, at least the realtors that I know most personally, has been the most frustrating part, is the idea that they can't get into a property and be one-on-one with a client. And it's frustrating, it's challenging, and realistically, it hurts your ability to do business in the short term. The good news is the Realtor report that came out recently is that there's no downward pressure on pricing. Inventory levels are stable, and it would have to go probably 4x before there was a really driving pricing downward. I happen to know, because I track the value of my own home, is that I expected even a little fall off during this period of time, but I actually the value increased slightly, but it increased. And so I think it's encouraging to believe that when we come out of the other side of this forced containment, that you will have real opportunities, and you you won't have to retrench. So I want to talk about these in a very specific way. So on the screen you're seeing this is I believe this was a Facebook post from Sean Colley. Sean used to work for Warner Brothers and used to be one of our clients. And about a decade ago, he returned to his native home of Scottsdale, Arizona, where he became a realtor. You have to know Scott, and I'm going to give you a little insight to him. He is a man with boundless energy and excitement for just about anything he talks about. And his personality is magnetic to a certain group of people. Some people are like, oh man, he's over the top. But he connects with people on a real personal level, and I think it's sort of important to. When I talked about being authentic, Scott is ultimately authentic, and I'll give you just a peek into him.
Hey everyone, Sean Colley here, Berkshire in Scottsdale, Arizona. We've got the virtual open house weekend going all weekend long. This house just came in the market in Park Scottsdale. We got the sunshine out, south backyard, and I'll tell you what, there's a little peak of Camelback Mountain right there. Spectacular. Let me flip the camera around real quick. Great backyard space here. There's an RV and boat gate there on the side of the house. And quickly, right here, you've got a nice covered patio to enjoy coffee and cocktails at night with your family and friends.
So I'm gonna leave that there. We're not gonna walk through the house, but a couple of things I wanted to point out about Scott. One is that he's made a very personal choice to how he does virtual tours, and although he does more complex and more nuanced content for certain properties, the majority of what he does is basically iPhone on a stick, and it's all Sean on full, and he walks you through the property, and it's very cost effective for him. And even though he's feature benefiting the property, the reality is what's really being done here is that you're buying into Sean, and if you're attracted to that approach and that excitement, Sean is your guy. But virtual tours work, and they work best if they're an extension of you, and that doesn't necessarily have to include you in the content, or at least in that way. But it is, I think it's important that, especially in an age where people can't get into the property, you need to take them there, or you need to attract them by doing that. What we found, certainly in the luxury home market, is it's sort of an essential component at this point. And to that end, what I'd like to do is take you to one. And so there's a variety of different platforms. We're a Matterport service partner. We also do a variety of 360 formats, but I'm gonna focus on Matterport for the day. This particular property is in Los Angeles, and not in South Bay, but we thought that the nature of the property certainly made it interesting to review. Now, before I get into the tour, I want to let you know that this particular tour has been reviewed 5,200 times. That's 5,200 times. Now, most of them don't get that sort of viewership. Most of what we see is somewhere in the 100 to 400 range. But the more luxury your property, the more people are looking at it, and not only locally. There are international viewings. We in this particular instance, we've got viewings from China and Europe and South America, and a significant, obviously, are local, but it's important. So I'm gonna drop into here. So this property is 10,000 square feet plus, and Matterport gives you a dollhouse, and we can identify where we want to drop into the property. And most places you'll drop into at the front door, or or some other special environment. You'll see these circles on the floor. Those are navigational components that allow us to move through the space, and we can turn 360 degrees. So it's very immersive. I'm sure most, if not all of you, are very familiar with this space. But there are a lot of tools in this format and other formats that I think are important. One is that you can look at a dollhouse by floor, so you can get a good understanding and view of the property without without having to walk through the whole thing. Or I can drop back in here, and then I can navigate from floor to floor. So I can, there we go. I guess that is not responding. But it should, here we go. Well, I've got a little technical failure here, so I'm going to bail out of that particular one and go back to here. There we go. With that, to give you another example tour, we had a property in the Lake Arrowhead area, and that particular property was viewed 400 times, but ultimately the sale was done without a site visit. And what we did is we combined virtual tour, drone, and video as resources, and that actually helped people visualize. So I'm going to give you a little overview of this property on Rimpau from the air. So it gives you a sense of location and some definition. Turn the music down so you don't have to compete with that. And so it gives you an overview of the property and a sense of that. And we find that to be very valuable. So there are lots of tools out there that do this sort of thing. You don't have to do Matterport. We're aligned with that, and it makes sense for us, and it's a logical methodology. But there are do-it-yourself kinds of tools, things like VPix and Zillow 3D Home, Transported, Astaroom. These are sort of combinations of service. Some of them are actually service bureaus where you basically just order a service and it gets done for you at some sort of a price. Usually these are more discounted than the higher end, but and other versions of this are where you can actually buy a rig or hardware and software and be able to do your own 360. But there's a distinct quality difference in certain versions of this, and so just be mindful of that. So I'm going to take you to another. This is a Redondo Beach property on Juanita. And we again use video. We're also integrating some feature benefits into drone and video work. I'll just let a little bit of this run, where we put the square footage of the property, some of the feature benefits like a rooftop deck and a view, so you can see what it would look like for you should you be there. All very critical and important parts, and then we do interiors as well. So and then we have the Matterport of this property as well. And the reason I've wanted to show this one is it's got a feature that was not on the last, and there is an opportunity to put hotspots in this space, so you can do feature benefits through here. We can launch textual content, we can launch image content, we can launch video content, we can give links to websites, or we can deliver PDF files or those types of things, is very flexible in this space. And I believe, I'm not aware of any of the 360 platforms that don't give you an opportunity to hotspot. It's varying levels of how that integrates. But and again, you have all the tools, the floor managers. You can actually even do measurements. I wonder how far it is from the couch to here. I want to make sure that my whatever fits in that. So I got 2.89 meters, and you can control that information. So the as people look at it, they can get a sense, will their furniture fit? Well, does this work for them? It's one thing to be in an immersive space, but now it gives you a spatial relationship as well, and I think that's powerful. So let me go back to the presentation here. So the other, there are a number of other things that you can get out of here. One I think is important is that Matterport, some of the 360 programs are actually imagery. So you're taking photographs and stitching photographs together. So you have a circular view. In this particular instance, Matterport has an IR scanner on it, infrared. There are other scanners, LiDAR and what have you, that can do the same kind of field measures. But this is reasonably accurate within a centimeter or so. And so we can create 360 photographs, a floor plan, and some other content that can come out of this from a single event. So, these types of photography either come from drone or from the Matterport, easy to get to. There are the other tools that I was talking about. Pardon me, I'm going to take one more drink of water. iGuide is a competitor of Matterport, Zillow 3D Home. A little less so because of the technology that's used there. It's not as as fully. It's navigable, but it's not done in the same mechanism. So one of the other components is that a lot of people are not using, especially if you're doing some sort of community marketing. This is an example. We have a client who represents a gated community, and Google traditionally does not have access to that, so there's no street view in those environments unless it's been made possible. And we are Google Street View partners, which allows us to superimpose or provide content for areas on a map. And in this particular instance, although I didn't choose a screenshot of this, you can't, Google frowns on overt advertising. It's like you couldn't put a banner across the entire side of this building, but your listing signs can be in the yard, those types of things. So it reinforces your involvement in the property. Something else, if you're representing new content, I mean new construction, a lot of times those properties will, the last time the Google car went by, there is a big green trash can out front, and that'll last sometimes up to a year after after the property has already gone on the market. And we've often been called out to just take an updated Google content and deliver that to Google Street View and make it more palatable. So I think you've seen some of this, and I'm going to highlight Tasha Gwilt, who is one of our customers. Her and her husband David are strong believers in the content, and they are doing it in a variety of different ways. They have YouTube channels. They have microsites. They do 360 and drone on most of their key properties, and then they continue to reinforce this and drive the business, and consequently it's been very successful then. But we're strong believers in listing trailers and putting that information out, whether you're doing it handheld or you're doing something that is more production centric, then we encourage that. So also an opportunity is virtual staging, either with existing photography or Matterport or other types of 360 scans. We can embed staging, and it is a bit less expensive than an actual staging. And in a time where you may not be able to stage, this might be a reasonable opportunity. And then of course you can get photography from that. But since I called out Tasha before, I'm going to show you this a site that we developed for them, and I think it's a good representative example. Along the top you'll see, so there's about information, so it reinforces the brand testimonials, buyer and selling information, and in the so you get that, and then there's a for sale section where we can drop into individual product where you see images, you see a 360, you see a video, there's a gallery, there's all the things that we talked about as part of this, and then the features, the list, as well as a map. Is really important that each of your listings have its own sort of kind of microsite. And if you'll notice up here in the URL, it has the actual address of the property. And again, this makes it infinitely searchable, and that's really important. And I think the Gwilts do a great job for what they're when they're trying to accomplish is done. So with that, I'm going to open the floor. We have a few minutes left. Just basically a conclusion. If you're interested in anything that we offer, and please don't feel obligated to do that, but you can get to details on what we do and what our products are available on that website, and then there is a South Bay Association of Realtor discount, which is 10% should you choose to take advantage of our services, and we of course encourage you to do so. So with that, I'm going to open the floor for Q&A. If there are any questions or any clarifications that we can offer to this, we're interested in your success, and anything that we can offer, whether it leads to a sale for us, is immaterial. It's because we buy into what we're selling, is that we want to be a value add. Are there questions? I've got people standing by. Hmm? Well,
David will ask.
huh?
David will ask how long we've been in the industry. We're coming right now.
Okay. Well, apparently it's.
Can you see the question?
I can't see them. All right, hold on. Let me bail out of this here and go back to Zoom. Sorry. I can't see.
I will just tell you. We had one question. How long have we been in the industry?
How long have we been in the industry? So we have that question. Interestingly enough, the company's 30 years old, but our involvement in real estate has been relatively light until the last, say, 4 years or so. We actually got pulled into the 360 market by Southern California Edison, where we were asked to create some virtual tours of spaces that nobody goes into. So we got really conversant in dealing with hazardous environments, and then we sort of got pulled into the space. So we do especially 360 work in commercial real estate, residential real estate. We do insurance work, everything from smoke damage, water damage. We shot in downtown LA an illegal honey oil location where a building blew up. There's a whole range of things, but we've been active participants in this, I'd say, for really about 4 years.
We got do we do photos, video, drone, and create virtual tour?
Do we do photos, videos, drone, and virtual tours? Yes, we do. All of the above. We're licensed drone pilots. We're Matterport service partners. We're Google Street View partners. So all of this is done with our resources internally. These are all our employees. We're bonded and insured. And then even though our offices are in Torrance, but we also have a location in Kansas City, and we provide those services there as well.
Paul Small asks, how are your kids?
One of the realtors on this call actually used to be a member of our team in another lifetime. Paul Small, how are you? Good to see you. Or I can't see you, but I wish I could. He asked how the kids were. The kids are great. They're all grown up. They've got kids of their own. I'm working on grandchild number 5. That'll happen in May.
Someone asked about aerial Matterport.
Yes.
Talk about drone.
So somebody asked about the aerial Matterport and drone work. So the technically we don't have a drone that will carry a larger Matterport camera. We can shoot it with a lighter camera from that. Matterport is, since it's got an IR scan on it, doesn't do as well in exterior spaces because it doesn't have the distance range. But we have other tools where we can do 360s from aerials. We can also do photogrammetry. So one of the other markets that we've done work for is people doing geotech work. Not too far from us, there is a bluff that was collapsing, and so we captured that. But in addition to that, the photogrammetry can do plant health and elevation changes and all of those things. So there's really a whole range of both field measure and visual capture tools that really make this kind of exciting, and they continue to grow and become more sophisticated.
Someone's asking about pricing. We're going to post the price sheet.
Yes, asked about pricing. We do have posted pricing, and at the close of this, we actually have a resource document that will have links to all the things that you saw today, and as well as a lot of just valuable data from the market. And we'll also have a link to pricing. We have published Matterport pricing, and it's in line with national pricing there. And obviously we do engage in relationships that are relatively captured, where we can offer consistent discounts. And so yes, we'll all our pricing is very transparent. No more questions? All right, now I actually can see the questions. Oh, and I, not me, actually posted. So there's if you go to bakersman.com/real estate/rate sheet.pdf, you can see that. So you can get a framework. The one caveat to that is that if you have a property that's more than 10,000 square feet, usually we bid those on day rate. For example, we do a lot of work for CBRE and commercial properties, and just yesterday, David was shooting in Valencia, and he shot multiple suites, and the whole thing was probably close to 18,000 square feet. And so our bill, rather than some sort of extrapolated number on square feet, was based on the day rate. And so it depends on the complexity of what we're doing. Some, in that case, and I don't know that there's any commercial realtors on this, but in that, if the space is empty and has a large amount of open space, it's one price, and if they have a lot of closed window offices, it would be another. And we're just defining how much time it takes to accomplish that. Any other questions? With that. Oh yeah, and it was pointed out that we do multifamily apartments and things of that nature. Actually, we've been doing that in Kansas City this week. We have a developer who has 85 properties that we're shooting all at one time, and associating everything through microsites. So anyway. Well, we've reached our 1 hour timeline. Thank you for joining us. We'll have a recorded version of this, and will be made available to you. I'm not sure exactly how it will get to you, but I know that we'll be sending you a link to that, and we'll have it on our social media as well. And I hope you have a great day. And while we're on our way out, I'm going to play our reel. Thanks again for your time. And how do I share this? Here, I'll just move it over here. Okay, good. Thanks, everybody.